Dave, it's time to move on and talk about a movie that kind of only came onto our radar very recently. Shout out the Big Picture podcast saying that this was one of their favorite movies of the year so far. The Vast of Night. Dave, watching this on Amazon at home, how did you feel watching the Vast of Night? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so definitely a movie I wish I saw in the theater
Yeah.
because of how good it is. But yeah, this came out on Amazon on May 29th of this year. So it's been out a while. We are knowingly coming at this late. And it's funny because this is a movie that premiered at a Slam Dance back in 2019, so January 2019. And that was after Andrew Patterson, the director. This is his first film. This is after Patterson was rejected from numerous film festivals for like all of 2018 after making this mainly at the end of 2016 and editing it through 2017. So it's had quite the journey just to get to the screen. And Patterson, he's 38. This is his first film, and he's already kind of a successful like videographer based out in OKC. So cool story. And yeah, I found what I liked about it from the jump was that it just throws you in this story, the narrative. You just kind of latch on with these two characters, Everett and Faye, and you pick up on stuff as you go. It has a really fast-paced dialogue, especially in the early going. But there's a series of monologues in the film that are just completely engrossing and hold your attention, from Billy and then from the older woman in her home later on. So, it has some obvious comparison points to stuff like, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It kind of has a Spielbergian sensibility to the filmmaking. It kind of goes without saying. But it also has some, homage of sorts to like Twilight Zone and X-Files, stuff like that. But, I thought it was a really thrilling movie. 90 minutes, doesn't really waste any time at all. It's really methodical, and it was made for like $700K, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I really wish I could have seen it in the theater, because you can tell this would be a great experience.
Totally. It really does grip you right from the beginning, and you're really sucked in. And thinking about Patterson's background as a videographer, you can kind of see how he uses the close-ups, how he uses panning away, or even like turning the screen off to really draw your attention to certain aspects of the story. It's kind of framed as like there's the sounds going on across this small town, 1950s small town, and they don't know
New
what
Mexico.
the sounds are, or what these noises or things are, and they start to investigate Faye and Everett. And Faye is a telephone operator and patching people through to Everett, and that first phone call they get from the old army person who would had the story about like seeing this alien spaceship or believing it was an alien spaceship, and he was picked because he was black and no one was going to listen to them back then. And but the way it like pans into Everett's face, and you never see the guy on the other end of the phone line, and then it actually cuts to black, and you're just like sitting and listening to this story just like you would if you were just sitting and listening to the radio. I thought was a really awesome choice, and something that really like made me focus on just what was being said in the story, and like maybe almost like use my imagination to depict part of this, which I thought was an interesting technique. I also thought the way that they like light and frame when they go to that old lady's house to hear her story and her experience with her child being abducted was like a really like eerie, dark sense. They used like dim lighting over her face, so she looked very like creepy, but also kind of like she was just this like nice old woman in a sense, So I thought it was really, really effective, and it stuck with me. I watched this a couple weeks back, and man, I have nothing but really good things to say about this. How did you feel like the Sierra McCormick as Faye and Jake Horowitz as Everett did performance-wise?
I liked them a lot. They have to deliver quite a lot of dialogue. They have to deliver most of the dialogue in the film. And to actors I was not familiar with, I believe Jake Horowitz, this is maybe one of his first roles, as far as I could tell. He doesn't have a Wikipedia yet. And Sierra McCormick's a little more experienced. But I like them a lot, and I thought Sierra in particular, her performance as Faye kind of stood out to me because you could really tell just how lived in this town was, this world was. Again, on a sparse budget, but like those locations, they just feel so real. And Faye feels like a real person. Like you tell like
Yeah.
how like genuine she is about like, oh, Everett, you can't do that. That's lying. It's like,
Hmm. Yeah.
and just in their relationship in general. As Everett as like a talented, aspiring radio
Radio.
DJ personality, and Faye as a switchboard operator. Kind of both in one sense highlighting the gender roles of the time, but also kind of lending to the. I think it kind of lends itself so well to the story because no, there are no phones to try and capture photos of these aliens, right? Faye has to go get that camera
Yeah.
from whoever's house, and like just in case, right? And earlier on, Billy's like, yeah, it was all these Mexican and black soldiers because they know no one will listen to us and believe us what we
Hmm.
say anyway, right? Um, but honestly, I think the second monologue from the old woman really sat with me because, in a sense, you also, I mean, on one hand, like, you're kind of on the edge of your seat because you're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the story. But
Yeah.
there's also kind of like a sense of like dread and sadness because you understand that this woman's life was effectively ruined
Yeah.
by these aliens taking her fucking kid, and
Hmm.
then thus everyone changing their opinion on her after they already were judging her due to the custom of the time and having an out of wedlock kid. I was like, wow, it's kind of a lot there to sit there and chew on. And then whenever it wasn't believing her and like wouldn't take the words that the
Right.
aliens speak, right? And like you could just tell like he was like breaking her heart. She felt like this was like her last chance. And it's I think it's a really impressive movie.
Yeah. And for it to be framed as this like kind of like mystery sci-fi alien movie and to be hitting on such heavy themes and really having you sit with those themes, like you talked about the racial inequality and injustices within the military, the stigma of having a child out of wedlock, and really, she was taken advantage of by this person who she had this child with. She didn't even know how to read. She like dropped out of school. There were so many instances that like led to her being stigmatized for her plight in life, but um a lot of those things being out of her control, and like having you really sit with how our culture and our society comes to develop those things, and then kind of framing that around this like ghost story, I thought or this alien story was very interesting. How did you feel about like the last third of the movie when they kind of like go into the field and the ship
Mhm.
arrives and things like that? Did you feel like that hit for you the way you expected or hoping?
Yeah, for sure. It's also it's one of those movies when you know going in that it's modestly made. You're like, is this something where you don't actually see what's haunting you, what aliens are here, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
But then you actually see that ship in the distance, and you're like, imagine being those fucking kids right there, seeing
Yep.
that right after everything they had been through that night, and later, which I don't know, you see that it's just this one little like scout vessel as part of a larger mothership or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a sci-fi movie. It doesn't like OD on its sci-fi ness, but it's like just enough, right? So again, that's why I like the Spielbergian nature of it all. Obviously,
Hmm.
really stands out. Um, you know, Andrew Patterson has befriended Steven Soderbergh thanks to this movie. I think Soderbergh saw this at Slam Dance because he was promoting High Flying Bird at the time,
Mm.
and Soderbergh has espoused a lot of praise for Patterson in terms of what he was able to accomplish in this movie. Again, knowing everything it took to make this, Soderbergh, of course, the one who ushered in the modern indie film. I'm sure that's
Yep.
a wild thing to hear. And
Sure.
I think Patterson and Soderbergh, they just like an interview you can talk, they talking to each other in the LA Times. Pretty interesting to hear that. Um, and Patterson, he financed this whole movie by himself. So he said he owns the movie. That's pretty cool.
That's
Apparently,
great.
he already shot this movie. It's a revenge thriller around the honey bee industry.
Oh shit.
So yeah, I don't know. And
I'm
he also
in.
other stuff in the kitchen. So who knows when that other movie comes out? But uh, definitely a really intriguing uh, debut. And he's someone who again he's a little older. than your average new filmmaker, and he's based in OKC, not on the coast, and he doesn't have any social media. So it seems like he's grounded and he wants to do what stick to what he wants to do, which
Yeah.
is nice because, again, we've seen nascent filmmakers very quickly be snatched up by franchises and kind of artistically held back as soon as they debut. We've gone over that before. So hopefully he sticks to his guns because he doesn't seem like he really needs a whole lot of help, But imagine what this guy could do with like $10 million or $20 million.
Yeah. It's funny, as you were saying that, I was trying to think of like the directors that have kind of stayed away from that, like that payday, that franchise movie thing. And I mean, Barry Jenkins, I think, is the one that comes to mind, as he always kind of does what he wants to do. Chazelle. Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think if there's any female directors that really stand out in that sense.
Greta.
Yes, Greta for sure.
Jordan Peele. Yeah. Although he did Twilight Zone.
Yeah, Jordan Peele got that bag, and he's like an EP on so many things at this point.
Yeah.
Candyman, he probably just like looked at it once and they're like, slap Jordan Peele on there,
But Andrew Patterson, he does seem pretty thoughtful though, so I don't think he's the next Trank. That's nice.
I'm with
Chronicle. It's an easy comp. Chronicle, another really
true,
eye-catching. That was more superhero, but science fiction angled movie made for modest money. So. Yeah, very exciting. Definitely want to recommend that to everyone because, apparently it played some drive-ins too back in May. That must have been cool. Sick because that's like a classic feel. It's a classic feeling movie. And back at a time when that's how most people watched movies was at a drive-in, So that was probably a really cool experience.
Yeah, man. Give me the beekeeping movie now. I need it. That sounds super interesting.
Honeyland 2, Revenge of the Bees.